I was talking to my friend the other day about how, like, in present day times, furries are seen way less as like cringe and more like people who live everyday normal lives like you and I, but also happen to be furries. You know, we've got those content creators who are furries but happen to also be into fashion, or like those videos where that person asked those furries what their occupation was at some furry convention or something, and it turned out many of them had very high earning jobs, which in retrospect makes perfect sense now, as top of the line fursuits cost lots of money, so you've got to have very deep pockets, or, you know, be incredibly creative and talented at making things. Years ago, however, furries got so much crap every time they were spotted on the internet. If there was a clip, if there was a photo and there was a furry in it, everybody in the comment sections was just clowning on them. You know, people made up fake rumors about them that, you know, furries want to have intimate relationships with animals. Or kind of just to summarize, people would constantly paint this picture that furries were all just degenerates who hid their face behind a mask so they could get away with a whole host of nefarious activities. And don't get me wrong and paint this harmonious picture, furries still get a lot of crap on the internet. You know, people still make cringe compilations of them. But however, it should be noted that a lot of the public's general opinion of furries has shifted from this all-out fear-mongering and hatred of them to like, yeah, whatever. They are clearly just doing their thing and it's not really harming society, is it? It's not infringing on anyone's rights. And you know what my aforementioned friend put this public change in perception about furries down to? Kurtis Connor. So after laughing, if I kid you not, about 10 minutes at this 100 image in my head of Kurtis being the savior of all furries all over the world, I simply asked my friend what they meant by that. And they were like, Kurtis did that video on furries and cringe culture, and how having like this mainstream content creator portray furries as, you know, regular, normal people with a hobby, something we can all, you know, relate to, having hobbies outside of everyday life, instead of, you know, the fear-mongering, the misinformation, and the bed of lies surrounding furries. My friend argued what this did is it helped normalize furries to a wider audience who would never have actually interacted with content from a furry in the first place. So they never would have had that epiphany or moment of realization when they would be like, oh, actually, furries are clearly just pretty normal people. Yeah. To which I was like, that is straight up the most profound thing you have ever uttered to me. But also, to be fair, our friendship is solely based on cutting trees for a couple of hours a day on a game we used to play 20 years ago. But what this did do is it really did get me thinking about like cringe culture, subcultures, and like the lies and misinformation spread about them in general media and general population. And then it hit me. Therians. Well, it didn't actually hit me. If I angered a Therian, they'd probably like bite, scratch, growl, or hiss. But Therians get so much hate and misinformation and just straight up lies spread about them on the internet rampantly. Like the one I always see is, well, didn't Therians ask for litter trays to be in the school bathrooms? No, this is wild, like absolutely wild, wild lies. Wild like a Therian. I'm sorry, I'll stop with the Therian jokes now. But then it did hit me again. I could make a video like Kurtis Connor's furry and the ethics of cringe culture. I could make one for Therians, the current most clowned on subculture on the internet. And then I too can be considered the savior of some random subculture, and in like 40 years time I'll be on like the History Channel on a documentary about Therians, and my job description will be philanthropist to Therians or something amazing and grand like that. Side note, I should confess, I don't think Kurtis is actually the savior of furries, nor do I think I will be the savior of Therians. But I do think these are very interesting videos to make, so let's do it, hey? So of course, with that, a super big shout out to Kurtis for the inspiration for this video. I will do a funny self-aware hee hee ha ha and make my thumbnail very similar to yours, and also link Kurtis's video in my description. And also a huge shout out to the Therian content creators whose stills I used in my thumbnail. Oh, and before I forget, my name's Cal, just so I'm not a random man ranting at you on the internet. So, you know, feel free to subscribe and join the community where we all discuss different topics together as a team. Yes, good stuff, hey? So if you have made it this far and you're like, wait, hold up, Cal, what even is a Therian? Because right now they are looking super similar to furries. Well, the difference between a furry and a Therian on a superficial level may seem negligible to like the everyday person who is not aware of these different subcultures. But on like a very basic simplified definition of a furry is someone that has created an anthropomorphic animal character for themselves, which they may draw or even dress up as, have their own bespoke furry suit. That is their persona. Cool. A Therian, however, as the Therian Info Center on TikTok puts it, is a person who identifies non-physically with a creature that exists or has once existed. This, of course, is not to be confused with an otherkin who also identify or feel connected to a creature, but, however, are not limited to earthly ones, so could be like an angel or a demon. Other notable contributions I've seen made when describing or defining Therians is they feel their soul is that of another animal, perhaps a wolf. So in turn, they are spiritually connected to that animal. Or another explanation some Therians may make is they feel like they were a specific animal in a previous life. But that, in short, gives this very basic, simplified understanding of a Therian. And listen, I know at this point, some of you may be tensing up and be like, hey, hold up, Cal. Surely you can't be going along with this. You must know that these people can't actually be like a bottlenose dolphin, right? But honestly, team, even though I'm not a Therian myself or have ever had the urge or felt that I was spiritually connected to any sort of animal, so therefore I could never subscribe to the Therian belief structure. I do think, however, a lot of like the outrage, misconceptions, and public opinion around Therians comes from seeing short individual clips and not actually reading into it. Like in mainstream media, or at least on the internet, when the mass public has been exposed or seen Therian content, it is usually someone running around the woods on all fours wearing a mask. And due to that, and the lack of context around it, there is so much room for personal inferring, like what you take from that situation, right? I see so many people commenting, or when they're talking about Therians, be like, do they actually think they're a wolf? Do they not know they're human? But this is where the conversation starts, as Therians themselves will be the first to tell you they know they are human. Like, they are not under the belief that physically they are not a human. They are very aware of this. And so will do all the same human things as you or I, like eat, sleep, rave, repeat. I think due to the language being used to define what a Therian is, you know, it's kind of vague and leaves a lot of room for personal interpretation. Such sentences as feeling connected to a wolf, or perhaps you were a wolf in a previous life. Because of this, some people will conjure these images of Therians in the head of this person, you know, like on all fours in a wolf mask, barking and growling at another person. And the other person's like, hey, I'm just trying to deliver your Amazon parcel. Or like another person wearing a wolf mask, scooting their ass across the floor because they got worms. But I can't stress this enough. This is like so far from the reality for like 99.9% of Therians, who simply just have this outlet for self-expression when they're not doing everyday human tasks. I think the first piece of like Therian content, or content within that universe, I was ever exposed to was this clip.
On all levels except physical, I am a wolf.
And I literally remember at the time, my friends, me, and like wider society would just reference this to each other all the time, because we literally had no context for this clip. All we saw was this person come online and claim in all ways except physical they were a wolf. Like, what do you do with that information 10 years ago? And of course, at the time, none of us thought, you know, search up this clip to get like wider context on it. We didn't really think for a minute that maybe it had been taken out of context, or like what it all actually meant. It was basically just seen as a funny hee hee ha ha internet meme. However, to like fast forward to present day, and when I started researching for this video, I was like, hold up, was that the first piece of Therian content I was ever exposed to? So I did some like deep diving and digging around, and I found out what the content creator is up to in present day. Hooray! Let me introduce you to Aspen, and as she personally puts in her TikTok bio, the Wolf Girl, which I think is incredibly self-aware and hilarious. Because like back in the day when this clip did go viral, everybody just referenced it as, you know, the wolf person. Have you seen the wolf person that claims in all ways except physical they're a wolf? And what I did find interesting is Aspen actually shed some light on this original clip. And basically, to summarize, she says the people that were filming said clip were filming a documentary piece on Therians and otherkins, and they got Aspen to say this line, and then on another day they got Aspen to bark. And then what they did is they edited it all together to make it look like Aspen said this line and then felt compelled to bark out towards C. You know, Aspen even says in this video a lot of the things they were getting her to do, she wouldn't even normally do herself.
They had me go into a pet store and shop for collars, among other things that I just wouldn't normally do. I think the funny thing is that I don't actually bark at things. They actually said, hey, look at the water and give us a bark.
I think what I'm trying to get across here is in these little Therian clips we've been sporadically and fleetingly exposed to over the years without any sort of like wider clarification or context. This clip without Aspen's added context, or the clips of like Therians zooming around the woods on all fours. What all of this does do is it shapes this image in like the mass public's head of like genuine confusion. Like it's a big question mark over, do these people know they're human or not? And team, let me remind you, Therians will be the first to tell you they know they're physically a human. They're not denying they're a human. Okay? One of the first big hurdles I see people trip up on and get stuck on around the concept and conversation of Therians is shifting. And for a simple explanation or definition of Therian shifting, let's go back to the Therian Info Center on TikTok. Therian shifts is a temporary change in mentality, mood, sensory perception, or spirit that causes a Therianthrope to feel more instinctual or animalistic. Side note, Therianthropes are basically just people who are Therians, and basically from here I will see a lot of people quickly shut down and refute shifting, saying things like, these people are lying, they don't know what they're talking about. Personally, I am not here to debate whether shifting is or isn't real, as I don't think it's productive or beneficial to this conversation. Like I said earlier, I'm not a Therian. I do, however, think there's a difference between saying, hey, look, I personally don't subscribe to your belief structure, but that doesn't mean a case of I need to comment on their videos. You're wrong, don't believe in you. It's just not beneficial to any conversation, is it? I think with any subculture, field, or subject, it is often that within those subjects, they adopt their own jargon or specific words to describe things within their chosen field, right? We, as observers on the outside, can basically just observe and then from there extrapolate what they mean by these words and the things they say they are doing. Some good old-fashioned empathy without having to try and refute or dismantle their belief structure, basically. As mentioned earlier, a lot of the Therian content you will see on TikTok is simply just a person with an animal mask running around on all fours, typically in unbusy, unpopulated areas. Woodlands seems to be a popular choice for Therians. So what we can see from this is that when a person is expressing themselves in their Therian outlet, what they are typically doing is basically conducting themselves in a manner which to us from the outside, as spectators, looks like if you asked a person to do an impression of an animal. Team, I've just got to come out and say it. There is literally no harm there. And to like paint this as anything dangerous or at like the degradation of society would literally simply straight up just be fear-mongering. You can, however, not understand it. You may not resonate with it. You can be like, hey, look team, I've never had the urge to get on all fours and run around. You know, I am clearly not a Therian. Fine, okay, cool. The Therian subculture is clearly a very niche one, but a lot of the demonizing and hate I see around Therians is just completely baseless. A large portion size of Therians practice this thing called quadrobics, and this is where a person moves around on their hands and feet like an animal, e.g. a wolf. And honestly, some of this stuff is really just straight up impressive. Like some are getting mad airtime and moving really rapidly. It's impressive. Like honestly, if I attempted this, my joints are snapping. No questions about it. So the people clowning on Therians, they paint this picture that their whole existence is just illogical, right? They're like, whoa, these people don't want them. But in truth, for what? Thinking they have the soul of some animal, or they think they were an animal in a previous life, and so to resonate with that part of themselves, they occasionally wear a mask and do quadrobics amongst other things. As outlets go for personal expression, this is just not a problematic one in my opinion. You know, there's no politics in it. It's an apolitical thing. They're not trying to like radicalize people. I think a big contributing factor to like the demonizing of Therians is the lack of exposure the mainstream majority have to Therian content which has substance. And by that I mean it's not just a short clip of a Therian yeeting themselves around a forest on all fours running really fast, you know, perhaps, I don't know, in this imaginary scenario I'm conjuring up, like a person who's also a Therian doing normal everyday stuff, and just like any human with an outlet that's important to them, after they've done all their normal human day-to-day tasks, they then go and give their outlet time. And I should stress and say, if you are a Therian watching this and you're like, hold up, Cal, being a Therian is more than just a hobby to me. It is a part of my self-identity and my expression. Yeah, I do not doubt that for a second. I am all for you having this as part of your self-identity and, you know, personal expression. I'm all for people expressing themselves in an authentic manner that feels right to them. My goal for this video is simply to humanize Therians to people who would never normally consider this stuff. As currently, if you ask a random person about Therians, and you know, I did this as like a soft test for this video, I just asked people in my world, people I know IRL, right? I was like, hey, what do you know about Therians? What do you think about Therians? One friend quoted the "in all ways except physical, I'm a wolf" video at me, and the other told me about how they saw a TikTok talking about how Therians ask for litter trays. So, you know, clearly this video is needed. So with that, let's tackle the big misconceptions about Therians, shall we? Sweet. As mentioned in the intro, the big main one I see people knocking heads and battling over when discussing Therians is people were saying Therians were demanding, rioting, preaching that Therians must have access to litter trays in their schools. This is simply just not true, and the biggest, well, that never happened ever. Unfortunately, upon further research, I quickly realized the origins of the whole cat litter thing are that of a transphobic nature. Basically, a few years ago, when schools started trying to be more gender inclusive, having things like gender neutral bathrooms, a portion of right-wing extremists saw this and were like, well, what's next? Cat litter trays for people who think they're cats? And this is just simply disgusting and invalidating because it smears the campaign for gender inclusivity. And also, I'm just going to say it again, big reminder, Therians know they're humans. They don't refute this. They never deny this. They know they're humans. Yes. Another big thing I see people try to critique as this big gotcha moment is they're like, well, why do all Therians seem to just pick wolves, foxes, cats, and dogs? Huh? And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think this is that surprising. You know, considering how out the whole of civilization, society has a documented connection to these animals and the qualities they possess. Therefore, a person within this subculture may find themselves more attuned with that of a wolf spirit than a dung beetle, due to there being more documentation of the wolf and the traits it possesses, right? Also, on the topic of, you know, Therians and how they conduct themselves in public, I see many people theorizing, speculating, conjuring up ideas and stories of like, well, do Therians just like bark and growl at random people in public? Again, these are all baseless claims and like conjured fake scenarios, right? Do I think maybe a very, very, very small portion of the people who belong to the Therian group may, you know, bark, hiss, growl in some social situations where this may not be deemed societally appropriate, e.g. a classroom where you're learning geography, or like the cinema when something scary happens in a movie? Nope, I honestly hardly doubt it. Perhaps there's one or two, yeah. But in those situations, it is up to the people within their support network to give them the help and support they need. However, this is just not a fair representation of the majority of Therians who are clearly just wearing masks and doing quadrobics in unpopulated areas. I know a common thing people like to do is they'll cherry pick videos and be like, look, Therian barking at person. But of course, we do not know the full context here. Maybe the Therians were barking and harassing at a random person who was also just going about their life. Or maybe that person had originally harassed the Therians. We don't know. In short, videos like this prove nothing. Also, like another one I have seen is people filming Therians at like trampoline parks.
Oh my god, what is that? Oh my god!
Quick question, but why are you as an adult woman filming somebody else's child? Why are you filming anyone for that matter at a trampoline park in order to laugh at them?
If they are doing their own thing, keeping to themselves and not impacting the other people at the trampoline park's time, then what is the issue here? People just being like, Cal, it's cringe, it's not normal, why are they wearing masks? Oh, get over it and think with some nuance. In this situation, it's not deep, it's clearly kids having fun. If it was a grown adult in a mask trying to interact with kids at the trampoline park and doing heinous things, then yeah, that's a weird and heinous situation. But this is clearly not. I think my basis for working out if any subculture or whatever you want to call it is problematic, a danger to society, it's really not about whether you can understand it, resonate, and relate to it, because that view in itself is such a selfish view on the world. Not everything in the world is meant for you, and that is totally okay. Rather, what we must ask is, what are the intentions of the people within this group, and what is its impact on society, right? And this, of course, can very simply be applied to Therians. Well, what is the mass majority of the content we see online surrounding Therians? Well, it's either, clearly very young people exploring self-identity and expression by wearing masks, doing quadrobics with their friends or whatever in typically less busy, less populated areas. Additionally, this is not the totality of Therians. They do many other things. Another notable one is creating these really intricate masks. And then from that, you ask yourself, well, what is the impact on society from this content? Well, of course, it's absolutely nothing in practical terms. You may not get it. You may then label it cringe because it's not an act, it's not an expression performed by the mass majority of public. But broadly speaking, for the majority involved in the Therian subculture, it is harmless. But Cal, I've seen some talking about having phantom tails or ears or teeth. Again, context is key here, team. Are they denying they're human? If not, cool, I have no issue with this. As this doesn't simply mean they are refuting that they are human, it just means they strongly resonate with their chosen animal. There is just nothing to fear over here, and I truthfully do feel a lot of the confusion and fear-mongering comes from people just running with baseless claims about Therians and thus labeling them cringe. Team, if there was something to push back on, I would be all for it here, Like if Therians were gathering in the dozens, rioting, being like, we need to change the laws of civilization to better suit my wolf needs. I would be like, yeah, okay, there's something to push back on there. But that is just not the reality of this conversation. Please do not believe the rage bait you see online surrounding Therians. It is simply a form of self-expression and not a representation of the totality of someone's life. Look, team, we all have expressions that we all do outside of the normal everyday things humans do, right? It breaks up the monotony. It gives us our own sense of individualism and identity. And within that, some of those expressions or aspects of self-identity, whatever you want to call it, come with a belief structure, some sort of spirituality. And of course, within that conversation, some also do not. But humans are multifaceted creatures that have free will, and therefore no two humans will have the same belief structure, right? Spiritual or otherwise, it's literally just impossible just because of how humans infer and interpret, and we're all complex. Whether it's witchcraft, being a Therian, playing knights and wizards with your friends. No, you cannot join my gang's IRL private server. Perhaps maybe once a fortnight or once a month you go out with your partner and you order starters all the way through to desserts, and in that moment you get to pretend you're a baller, you're someone that's made it. Or maybe you're a typical lad and you put on your best Stone Island jumper and you go out drinking pints, and in those moments you feel hard as nails and you can take on the world. All of this, in very simplified terms, is escapism from the monotony of life, and of course is part of your self-identity, which makes you you. And that's good. In short, to argue over which is more valid, less cringe, right or wrong is pointless. It's needless. It doesn't achieve anything. As long as no one's human rights are being infringed upon, that's all that matters. Saying things is cringe is just straight up close-minded. If content is actually problematic, articulate why that is. Don't just say cringe because it just shuts down any and all conversation. Anyway, that's probably what I've got to say about Therians and cringe culture. Yeah, didn't realize I was so passionate about this one, but here we are, making videos. Hey, maybe I just feel really strongly about self-identity, I guess. It's fun. As in truth, there is no right or wrong answers. Just don't harm others when choosing your loadout in life, right? Yeah, cool, swag, let's get it. Okay. And just to make it clear, Therians are not harming other people. There are just a bunch of people with the same shared spiritual belief, who are sharing their content online to also interact with like-minded individuals. That is why they do it. That is why they share their content. To be part of their group, their subculture, their movement. That makes perfect sense to me. All groups ever have done this. They upload content to, you know, interact with like-minded individuals. This isn't a new phenomenon with Therians. This is a done thing that's always been done and will continue to be done. Yeah, anyways, I'm going to pass this conversation over to the community now. I really look forward to sharing it all with you. Yes. Ta-da! Okay, it is now show and tell time. The part of the video where I always do show and tell to decompress from whatever topic we've been talking about. So if you're new here, that is what we're doing. Yes. Just so you're not confused. Good little bit of context there. Today I'm showing you my Bullshack Dragon from Duel Masters. Please, I'm hoping somebody else watching this video is old enough to remember Duel Masters. It was a pretty fleeting craze, but it was a cool one. Anyway, I acquired this card many years ago because I'm pretty sure it's the main one the main character has in the show. I'm not doing a very good way of explaining this, but yeah, it's a super cool card. And I just hope there's some other Duel Masters enthusiasts out there that remember this card. Is that focusing? I can't tell, but Bullshock, what are you? Bullshack Dragon! I'd be the worst telly shopping advertiser ever. But I like it. The card design's really cool and the back's really cool. Yep, pretty cool. Anyways, I've been your boy Cal, talking about another subject. There'll be another video I say here if you want to watch another one of my videos. Okay, cool. Say cool more, Cal, cool. I'm gonna go now. I haven't really eaten today. I'm super hungry. I'm kind of parched. If I was a sim, all of my stat bars would be super low right now. Whoa. Okay, bye. See you now. Okay, go. See ya. Just leave a comment and go. Talk your opinions on this, but see ya. I'm going now. Seriously. Goodbye.